from Hong Kong, Chicago, and the city of Stoke-on-Trent. This is the Classic Lenses Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode 135. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Johnny Sisson and Perry G. Hello, Johnny.
Hello.
And hello, Perry.
Yeah, hello.
Episode 135. Now that sounds like we could potentially do an episode about a focal length of a lens, but I can't think of one. Although I can remember that we did 135mm lenses in episode 11, and that was because it was connected to the Jupiter 11. I think that was the reason why we did it back in 2 years ago or so. So no particular 135mm talk.
What about 135 film?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, there is that. Yeah, but we haven't planned for that either, have we? So not going to actually plan for anything at all, because we've not been here for a couple of weeks, and again, as has been the way, it's been quite difficult to get the three of us together, and daylight savings time changes have made it even harder because Perry isn't even in the same day as Johnny and myself at the moment. What time is it over in Hong Kong at the moment, Perry?
It is 12:18 a.m. I thought daylight savings time was going to move things in the productive direction, and clearly it has moved in the other direction.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being a trooper and staying up for us there, Perry.
All good.
Yeah. So last time we did something of an email show, and we didn't get to the end of the emails, and we're going to try and do the same this time. Oh, there go the Stranglers again. And there's a reasonable chance we might not even get to the end of them this time because we have loads of emails and loads of really, really good emails. But we're going to do a little bit of a catch-up first, a pretty brief one, and then we'll go over to those. So I think first we'll head over to Hong Kong where things are so good. The opposition in Parliament, in the local Parliament there, have decided that they don't need to be there anymore because it's just so good. So how's it going, Perry?
I'm doing okay. Hong Kong is royally screwed. I mean, they've just been slowly chipping away while everyone's been distracted by other things elsewhere in the world. So pretty screwed up over here. We don't have an opposition in the legislature anymore, although they didn't really do much before anyway. And oh man, they're just cracking down on everything left, right, and center. That my solution is I just stop reading the news because there's nothing I can do, and it is thoroughly infuriating. So, there's that. But apart from Hong Kong being screwed up, I haven't really been doing much. I've been really busy with work, so I barely touched a camera in the last couple of weeks. Today I did though. I went for a little shoot with a friend this morning. And we're just walking around with cameras. And I decided to shoot a camera that I haven't used in a long time, or a lens that I don't think I've ever used. Is the Topcore RE Auto 35 2.8 on the RE Super. So I went shooting with that because, it's supposedly a really, really good lens. And the thing that always surprises me or always kind of strikes me when I use that lens is how ridiculously close the minimum focusing distance is. So, I figured some of the things that we were going to be looking at this morning, I would want to get reasonably close. And this thing, like the minimum focus distance is basically almost touching the lens. Wow. It's about 2 or 3 centimeters away from touching the lens. So that's super sweet.
I do wonder if there's something about 35mm lenses because the Flectagon, or at least the 2.4 Flectagon, that goes really, really close. And I've seen a few other lenses that go pretty close as well. So I just wonder if there's something about the optical configuration of 35mm lenses that allows that to happen.
I have no idea. I mean, I'm usually using them on a rangefinder, so my minimum focus is around 1 meter to 0.7. So it was just a shock to me. Like, oh man, these 35mm lenses can focus that close.
But is that the 35 2.8, Perry?
Yeah, the RE Auto.
Yeah,
the exact amount.
I'm looking at mine right now, and yeah, it's marked to 0.23 meter.
Right, but the lens is so big that at 0.23 meters, it's pretty much touching the front, almost touching the front of the object.
Yeah, exactly. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so I got some cool close-ups. I haven't been able to develop the film because I think my fixer is dead. I'm not sure though, because I mixed it up relatively recently, this batch, and it's Ilford Rapid Fixer, which I switched to recently from Coda Fix because it seems to help with the tri-X curl, but the fixer turned black, and I don't know if I can still use it.
Oh, it turned black. Nasty.
Yeah, it's black. It turned black, so I don't really want to use it.
I bet it. Did you smell it? Does it smell really nasty?
No, I haven't smelled it.
Go smell it right now.
What's it supposed to smell like?
Just do live smell test. Just go grab it.
Okay, you guys talk among yourselves. I'm gonna go get it and smell it.
Excellent.
So, for the benefit of our listeners now, would you describe the smell of good fixer, John?
Good fixer smell. I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think how to describe the smell of good fixer. I don't know, but I know what bad fixer smells like. That's why I wanted him to go open it and smell it on air.
So it actually looks like the fixer is okay.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see. It looks like it's just left a bunch of black deposit on the side of the bottle, which might be silver, which should be fine. Okay, I'm gonna smell it. I feel like I'm doing a Malort tasting.
I was going to say
you can taste it too if you want.
I was going to say, oh dear.
I'm
gonna try that again.
Does it smell like a jug full of rotten eggs?
Yeah, that's a really good description. But with ammonia.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Fun.
It's right. So it's piss and rotten eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exhausted fixer. You don't want to use that.
But I just mixed this up like pretty recently.
Oh, what's pretty recently?
A couple weeks ago.
Oh,
I've used it like twice, but I was using one other batch of fixer for ages, and so the raw stuff was sitting in the bottle for a long time, and it had a bunch of precipitate when I mixed it up.
Okay, yeah, that's not good.
So it might have died before I mixed it, but
that's possible because it smells like rotten eggs and piss. Then it's toast.
So I should not use this.
No, I mean you could snip off a piece of film and throw it and just see if it clears, but it doesn't sound promising.
Actually, just on the subject of that, because when I first got back into using film or getting interested in using film, I would hear this term snip test, and it was never really explained to me. I know what a snip test is now, but is it worth it? Let's cover it.
This is a little different than a snip test. This would just be like you could just take like the leader of the film that you would usually cut off and toss anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You just throw the leader in there, and if it clears the leader, it means that it will clear the film, and the fixer will probably work. Although it seems to me whenever I do that and it's on the edge, it clears my leader, and then I go to actually use it, and it's like not going to work. But that's just testing that. If the fixer still. A snip test is a little different. A snip test would be typically when you would literally snip off, let's say, a couple of frames and process them, and then based on that, you would know how to either expose or develop the rest of the roll.
Right.
So, but like way back in the day, there were times when I was working for the commercial photographer where you would go do a snip test. You would go over from the studio while they were set up for the shoot. You'd do a snip test, wait at the lab for them to develop the snip test, go back to the studio, and then you would adjust based on the snip test at the studio while they were still waiting there. So, but I don't think the world does that anymore. And that was E6. That was an E6 snip test.
Right. You would only do that when it's high stakes film.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like a decent budget shoot. So, but that was a thing. I literally did that shuttle work.
But just going back to testing the leader, and just be completely to help people that if you're going from a point where I still don't know what they mean by clearing the film, as in your film when you first get it, and when you before you take a photograph of it, you'll see the bit that sticks out of it. That's of the cartridge. That's the leader. And what we're talking about, when you actually look at that film, it's opaque. And then when you actually if you cut that leader off or part of the leader and put it into a receptacle of some description and with some fixer, and you drop that bit into it after a period of time, and how long, Johnny, do you think is a reasonable amount of time it'll clear and go so you can see through it?
It should be, it depends on the fixer, but it should be 3 or 4 minutes. It would be relatively opaque, and then 5 or 6 minutes it should be really clear without a tint. Like I find a lot of times the fixer, it'll clear the film, but there's still so much tint to the base that it hasn't really cleared it all the way. So you'll get like a very purplish pink tint to the film. And it's not really fully cleared. So you end up having to mix another batch of fix and re-clear the film anyway. So it's, to me, like if I'm going to do that test, the film has to be really clear. It can't have a really bad tint to it still.
Yeah. So maybe I'll do that. I mean, I usually do a leader test on every roll I develop anyway. So maybe I'll do that, but I don't really want to use this anymore because it smells so bad. I don't really want that smell in my house.
No.
Yeah, that would be nasty.
It's gross. Ugh. Although I could keep this here and just wait until your Malort arrives. And then
it would probably taste better than the Malort.
Side by side comparison.
Yeah.
But back to Simon's point about 35 millimeter lenses. I think you're onto something there, because it's not just the close focus distance, right? But like on rangefinders, 35 millimeter lenses are often much more compact than their 28 and sometimes like 50 millimeter counterparts. So perhaps there's something about that focal length that lends itself to a more compact design, which when it's on an SLR and it's moved forward, that would translate to a closer focusing distance.
Just on another note, because you're still in the second month of No Nut November, where you're not buying any lenses and things, and you've started this off by saying that you're now playing with a lens that you've never used before. And that strikes me as a coping strategy that you put in place for this No Nut November and October, where you would just buy a load of lenses and say, I'm not going to touch those, and I'm going to use them in the months where I can't buy any new lenses, and that will actually do it for me.
Well, that would indicate a huge amount of forward planning on my part for this No Nut November, because that means all those lenses I bought before would have been part of some grand plan. Nah. That's a conspiracy theory, Simon.
Yeah, maybe so.
But I mean, here's a good lens. I'm really looking forward to the results. I just can't develop. I have one roll that I finished developing, and then I got this one, and I need to wait. Sorry, that I finished shooting, and I got this one. So I need to wait until I get a new fixer before I can see what's on them.
Cool. Shall we head over to Chicago, Perry, or have you got anything else you want to just cover off quickly?
No, that's it. Focusing with the Topcon RE Super was one of the most tedious experiences in recent memory. So SLRs, I don't know, man.
Okay, so
but that's it.
So is this because it's just an SLR, or is there something about the lens that you find it hard to focus?
Not the lens, the camera.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
The focusing screen is not my cup of tea.
No. No. And
like the Olympus Pen or the Pentax Spotmatic, those focus screens, I have a much easier time. I mean, with SLRs, I still struggle, but this one is just everything looks the same no matter where I focus.
Yeah, I've completely been. I've gone down the view that since Johnny sent me down the Minolta camera route and then put your Exacta lenses onto a Minolta. I think that's just the way. I don't have any desires to use any exact amount lenses cameras anymore now, because I just don't see the point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this one's got stop down, not stop down metering, but like, the aperture stops down when you shoot it, so that is convenient. But without a focusing screen that's usable, it kind of defeats the purpose. So
yeah, I think I'm at a point where I'm going to sell that camera because I can just use the lens on a Minolta. I mean, there's no reason for me to actually use that camera body anymore for anything.
Right.
So, I mean, it's nice, it's beautiful, but I don't have a need to use it anymore. So, I need to send it away.
Yeah, it's a beautiful camera and it feels great in the hand. It just, you can't focus.
Yeah. So, Johnny, anything been happening in America in the last couple of weeks?
No, not really.
Yeah, fair enough.
Same old thing.
Yeah. And
same old thing.
Any good food?
I ate at the brand new Portillo's that just opened a block from my house, so that's big news. It's only the third one in Chicago, and they have wisely chosen to locate it like a block from my house.
Good move.
So I could eat there every day now. I could walk there. I could ride my bike through the drive-through and eat there every day. So I went on the sort of probably made the mistake of going on the first Saturday night they were open, and it took me 50 minutes to get through the drive-through. So they have this serpentine double line through the drive-through, and everybody had the same idea to go to the new Portillo's. So, but it was excellent. So it was worth the wait. So I will be returning there soon. Hopefully.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's absolutely right that we do talk about food and Chicago food in general, as much because in the post for our last podcast, which was 2 weeks ago now, and the comments from that podcast, there are 89 comments on that post in the Classic Lenses podcast Facebook group, and not a single one of those 89 posts is about photography, cameras, lenses. None of them. Which I consider to be the greatest success and achievement ever of this podcast. Exactly.
because it proves it doesn't matter what the fuck we talk about. We can say the word lens twice in the episode, and it's a Classic Lenses podcast episode, but we can actually talk about interesting things and not just cameras and lenses. It's like we can actually just have an interesting conversation. To me, that's amazing. We've crossed the line from, niche podcast to like actual just normal podcast.
It's pretty remarkable. Very remarkable. Yeah. But there you go. And I'm thinking that we are quite short of time, so perhaps we might do some pent-up energy on food on another show, and we should head over to something that I've trailered this afternoon, and that's the fact that I've had a little go at testing two lenses. One lens is I've actually had both of them for some time. One of them is a Konica 57 1.2, and it is my favourite standard lens, 51.2, or it's a 57, but a normal lens, fast normal. I love that lens. It's beautiful. It's lovely. But recently I picked up, and I think I touched upon it a few weeks ago, a Pentax 51.2. And that's a lens that's passing through. But before, and the main reason it's passing through is because I've never really considered keeping it because it focuses the wrong way, which we know is a real problem with Pentax and Nikon lenses, and it's undisputed. And so I knew it wasn't going to be staying with me. And Hamish Gill of 35mm fame, he dropped me a line saying, "What you doing with that lens?" Was he quite reasonably gathered that I wasn't going to be keeping it, and it's going to be heading over to him quite soon. Now I don't wish to denigrate this lens too much because he hadn't actually committed to buying it yet, So I may not give you my full opinion on the lens until he's actually given me the cash. But I just did a very, very quick test with my Sony, my A7 Mark II, and just took a shot wide open, and it was just of a shirt that was hanging up. It was airing in the conservatory, and I used the zoom function to shoot wide open and focus on a very, very specific point on the label, in fact, of this this shirt, and pretty much use that as a definitive test for how good the two lenses are. It's probably not quite that definitive, but a single test just for sharpness and ease of use, and just to compare and contrast. And it was as much as that sounded like a pretty unpromising definitive test, it was still quite interesting because a couple of things stood out from it. Now, when I'd actually used the Pentax lens before, because I took a couple of shots of Fraser Yule in this house, and we talked about it because we compared that to the Post 135 1.8 that I picked up at the same time, and I was moaning about that Post, saying it was hard to focus and so on, whereas the Pentax just snapped into focus really easily by comparison, because it was a much higher contrast lens. And it was interesting because I actually did find that the Konica was ever so slightly easier to focus for me. And then when you actually zoom in, it is actually slightly sharper as well, in my opinion. We'll put the pictures up in the Facebook group so you can take a look at them there. But the thing that actually really stood out between the two shots, I mean, there is a difference in focal length, which it's sort of that when you do comparison shots, that does tend to favour the longer focal length because it tends to be a little bit more punchy in the way that it's presented. But putting that to one side, there's a huge difference in the two shots that are shown, and the Pentax is very cold, it seems. But it may not be because it's cold. It may actually just because the Konica is radioactive, and it gives there's a yellow tint to it. When you look at it in isolation, it doesn't look to me. It just looks quite like nice warm colours, because it could be that kind of light. But you put them side by side, and the Pentax is way cool. It's as if like they're just at different ends of the spectrum, and I think for me that just shows one of the things I really like radioactive lenses for that reason. They warm a picture up, and it's not necessarily because that's what you see and that's life. It's just I just like warmer pictures. I mean, I don't know, you've seen the photos, Perry. I don't know if Johnny has, but I mean, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree on the color tint. I mean, I think my radioactive SMC Takamar is one of my favorites in terms of the color, for that very reason. But I mean, I think I've seen a lot more pictures out of that Konica than the Pentax 51.2. It's not a lens that you see as often as, I mean, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it's a lens that everyone knows about, but you just don't see used very often. But the Konica, you see it all over the place,
Yeah. Well, it's
pretty distinct character.
Well, it's certainly the case that this was I picked this lens up, and I've been buying and selling lenses reasonably seriously for about 5 years now, and I've only once held that lens, and it was one that had been somebody had bodged, and you couldn't even turn the focus ring anymore. But even holding a broken 51.2, I was impressed with it, because it's a mechanically it's a like all decent Pentax lenses. They're very good mechanically, and when I used it, like I say, I was really, really impressed with the results. And as much as like I'm not really having a go at it by saying it's not as sharp as the Konica. I mean, that's a bit of a nonsense, really. So we're talking at 1.2 and pixel peeping. When you actually come out of the picture, they both delivering excellent results in their own way, and it's as much about which you prefer between the two of them, really. But you just don't come across the Pentax 1.2, the 51.2. It's in the same ways I don't come across many. In fact, I've never come across an Olympus 51.2 in my time. I've come across the 55, but I've never come across the 51.2. So there's just a few lenses out there that just seem to be really uncommon.
Yeah, or the people who have them just don't use them for some whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's the other side with these 51.2 lenses, or these very fast normals. They're lenses that a lot of us wish to own, but we rarely use. But we're glad we've got them.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the other point there is, a lot of people will actively try to de-yellow their yellowed radioactive lenses. And I'm with you. I think it's a feature rather than a bug. I mean, I wouldn't pay more for a lens that's yellowed, but I do think in general they make color photographs look better.
Yeah. Johnny, have you got anything to say on that?
No.
Okay. So that's the definitive Pentax 51.2 lens. It's test. It's a good lens. There's no two ways about it. It's just not for me because it's not yellow enough. I think that's all there is to be said. So on that note, shall we do what we said we're going to do and do some emails?
Yeah.
Go for it. So are you teed up, Johnny?
I am. We have email number 1 from Jorge Grillo from September 30th. That's not that long ago, right? Not really. Mm-hmm. He says, hello, Simon, Perry, and Johnny. This is Jorge from San Diego. I'm the one who sent you those scribbles on Euclidean geometry applied to focal length and field of view that you kindly covered during episode 126. Yes, remember that very well. This is a small world. Ooh, this is going to get philosophical. This is a small world. In a move that can only be explained by complete insanity, I decided to pursue an opportunity that will take me to Chicago. Oh, you poor bastard. After 26 years, you're moving here, you crazy After 26 years in sunny and warm all year. No, I can't even read that. What are you thinking? Jorge, you're going to move to Chicago? I mean, okay, you're going to visit here, fine. You're going to move to Chicago from San Diego. That is the most insane thing I have ever heard in my life. That is straight up insanity. Okay, anyway, not my circus, not my monkeys. Johnny would love an opportunity to meet at some point and perhaps go shooting together, although not at midnight. Well, yeah, we could go shooting guns at midnight. That would work. I want to try some Malort as well. I'm moving on the weekend of October 3rd. My workplace is in Itasca, but I will be staying in East Lincoln Park. Please respond to this email if you would like to meet at some point, face-to-face, mask, and all. Thank you in regards to the great podcast. Jorge, wow, okay. So first thing, you're working in Itasca, but you're living in Lincoln Park. Now, there is no East Lincoln Park. It's just Lincoln Park. But East Lincoln Park means he's probably living like literally on the park, which is a very, very nice place to live. It's a very nice place to live. But that means you're going to be commuting to Itasca. And I'm hoping, I guess maybe because the world is not actually going to the office, that might not be too bad. But on a normal commute day at rush hour, that's about an hour and a half. So not only have you chosen to move to one of the shittiest cities in the United States of America from the best city in the United States of America, you're not even really living in that city. You're just commuting a lot. So you really have my sympathies. So yes, I would love to meet and try to talk some sense into you and see if it's possible for you to unmove to Chicago and go back to San Diego would be probably what I would say. But absolutely, by all means, we could do that. That would be great. I mean, you could have just moved to Indiana if you're going to do that. It's, you might as well, I don't know. Oh man, Itasca, that's rough. That's really rough. Itasca is essentially it's just like a suburb that's just conveniently located next to a highway, which is why businesses are there, but you really have no reason to go there other than that. So But that's good. It's good to see somebody has a job, and I guess they're actually going to the office. That's good, right? I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
the governor's about to shut our state down because the case positivity rate is 15%. But other than that, I guess that's great. Oh. Okay, so yes, by all means, Jorge, we will be in touch.
Yeah, I was going to say, if only we could have read this email out earlier. You may have been able to have influenced the move, but there you go.
I was going to say, I really wish you had consulted before actually making. I hope they are paying you a shit ton of money to have moved from San Diego. I mean, I can't stress this enough. I would leave here. I would leave Chicago so quickly for San Diego if that was an option, and never look back. I wouldn't even come back to visit, and I wouldn't even feel bad about it. I would just be gone, like, rapidly. So I don't know, man. You got my sympathies. I hope you have a good time. I hope you're going to the Wiener Circle, since you're right there in the neighborhood, and they're doing takeout. So you could be going to the Wiener Circle like pretty much every day if you wanted to, on foot from Lincoln Park, because it's in Lincoln Park. So I mean, for the food wise and living wise, that would be awesome. But yeah.
Cool. Okay.
All right. French name. Can anybody do French names? I know you can't, Simon, but Perry, can you do Perry? You can do French names.
Yeah. This is our good friend Pierre Alex Fablier.
Thank you. That was perfect. What Perry said, that's who wrote us on September 30th also. And this is subject, trip back into history. So Pierre is writing us and says, Dear the good, the bad, and the ugly, please assign as appropriate. I inherited my passion for photography from my grandfather, who used to be a photographer in a small town an hour northeast of Paris before World War II. When the war started, he was arrested for supporting General de Gaulle, who had fled to London by distributing pictures of him in the local area. He was sent to a work camp where I believe he was well treated and was tasked with building Stuka dive bomber planes in an aircraft factory within Germany. Luckily for him, he managed to be discharged from the camp by pretending to have a mental illness issues with the help of a sympathizing German doctor and returned to Paris. That is a really good tactic. I mean, it seems pretty simple. I mean, I didn't know the Germans gave people you're mentally ill, you have mental health issues, just go on back to Paris.
No, it did. That definitely happened.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there was. I don't know whether this was based on fact or it was fiction, but I mean, certainly back in the 70s in the UK, there was a program called I don't know if it was called Escape from Colditz or something on those lines. Anyway, and I remember there was one episode where somebody decides to do exactly that and fake a breakdown. And become mentally ill and play the part of being mentally ill, and he ultimately got out.
I would just think the Germans would be like, "Oh, you're mentally ill. Yeah, we like to kill people like you.
Yeah.
Here's a train ride to a death camp." I mean, that would have been my.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, I think they were.
But maybe it was more. Maybe it was more like MASH. Maybe they had. Maybe he wore a dress in pearls and he had. A psychiatrist
Klinger.
Klinger, yeah.
Yes.
He was doing the Klinger thing, and he made jokes about being from Ohio and stuff.
Maybe so, but just to finish that the Colditz story one though, the officer that was trying to play the act of being mentally ill, he had to do it for so long, and by the time he actually was released, he really was mentally ill. He didn't recover from it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nutso.
Yeah.
All right, well, it worked, so that's awesome. That's an amazing story. Anyway, all right, continuing on. In the summer of 1944, when the city was liberated, my grandfather went to offer his photography skills to the French army, who promptly declined his offer. No, the French, really? Disgruntled. He did the same with the U.S. Army, who gladly accepted his services, of course, for free, right? And promptly joined the U.S. Corps of War Photographers, despite the fact that he never spoke a word of English. Fast forward 70 years, he passed away in 2013 after a long and rewarding life. Whilst helping go through his belongings, I found a couple of negatives from his war photography days in a shoebox at the bottom of the cupboard, which I still have today, and are attached to this email, along with a portrait of him and another one from him within a group of photographers for the Army. His name was Gabriel Cochise.
I think that's Cauchois.
Oh, Cauchois. Cochise was Cochise is a famous Native American chief in Chicago, and also Cochise, I think, wasn't he a character in one of those apocalyptic movies set in the 1970s in New York City? I think it was the Warriors, Cochise, right? Okay, anyway, no, different Cochise. I was wondering if I could appeal to your vast knowledge of classic photography, gear, and history in order to figure out which camera lens film stock you would have used or likely have used. Hopefully, I might be able to find at least one of them on eBay. For examining the negatives, I believe they are the same emulsion, but obviously in different formats. I'm not a member of the Facebook group, but do not hesitate to share the photographs as you see fit. Keep up the good work and be like KARL, Pierre. So I don't have the photo attachments, but
they're great, by the way.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, and there's the portrait shot is there with his army beret, saying official war photographer, which is on
cool.
on the hat, which is absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, a tip off would be if the film. Well, okay, the first thing would be what format is the film.
So there are some negatives in the picture.
Yeah.
And I think what's telling is they are clearly medium format. And it looks like there's one 6x9 negative and one 645 negative. But the 645 negative is vertical, which of course you can rotate a camera, but it suggests to me that it might be a full that you can use the mask.
Yeah, a dual format. Yeah, that's a good thought. Is there any edge markings on the film? Because that would be really easy to track it down based on that.
No,
I can't see any edge markings on the film.
Okay. Now, what I would say is if the film, does it look like the film is all the way to the edges, or were they cropped to the image? Can you tell?
No, it looks pretty normal. It's not all the way to the edge.
Okay, so I would say the thing to do would be to inspect the film, because there will almost certainly be edge markings on the film. So you check in the rebate area outside the image area, there should be markings on the film, and based on those markings, you should be able to track down the film for sure, and it may actually say on the film there somewhere.
I don't think he's got that. I think the literally the negatives are cut.
I see. Okay, yeah. All right.
Yeah,
I see.
So, I mean, my guess is it's something like Simon, that looks like 6x9 to you, right? The big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the little one's definitely 645. My guess would be something like one of those 6x9 Icontas, or something of that ilk.
Yeah.
With the 645 folding mask inside, or just any 6x9 folder of that era.
It could be a medalist. I mean, he's doing this for the American Army. So
not American Army, right?
I thought
yeah, American Army.
Oh, okay,
it's possible. Yeah.
Is there a 645 mask for the medalist?
No.
Okay, yeah, it's that vertical 645 frame next to the 6x9 just screams folder, but yeah, it could be a medalist.
Well, if he has the negatives, I would say inspect the negatives. You know what I mean? If they've been cropped to the image, but you actually have the full negative, because it would be a little odd if they trimmed the actual negative to the image area.
No, but he sent pictures of the negative in the email.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, but there's no marking or anything on the rebate.
Okay. Well, just keep. I mean, if there's any other negs, just look at them and see if you can find any numbers, even, or anything. Because even from the numbers, you might be able to tell what film stock it was. But anyway, good story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good story. I look forward to seeing those photos too. Okay, moving forward to our buddy JD Wagner, official rod maker of the Classic Lenses podcast. Or should we call him Rod Man? Official Rod Man of the Classic Lenses podcast. He's our Rod Man. He says, "Hey guys, just listen to the new episode. Great as usual. Near the end, you asked folks for pics of American lenses on Insta. I don't have an account with them, but thought you, especially Simon, with his Sony, might dig a couple of pics from a woolen sack with some interesting oofta." Best JD Wagner.
Well, they've
So were there?
they're two. We've got two classic bokeh shots, as in or ufta shots, featuring flowers, which are always the best photographs for this kind of thing.
Excellent.
And I know what those flowers are as well, and I can't remember what they're called. Oh, it's gone from me. Never mind. Not that anybody really cares, but yeah, a couple of one shot in particular I really like, and because it's a classic ufta shot where it's one flower is the star, and there's a lovely painterly, almost wet on wet bokeh finish to the rest of the shot. So that's really, really nice. Where there's the shot that's taken further back. Again, there's a single. Well, it's the same flower actually. It's in focus, but it's taken further back. Well, what's interesting here is what's going on in the background, because there's some swirl that's going on there, which is attractive. Although I can't say I'm a fan of the actual shot, but you can see if there was a person in the middle of that photograph, you could just see how that could really work really well. So yeah, cool, very good,
Nice. All right. Next up, we have KARL Halen. KARL Halen. Carl Van Halen? Same spelling, right?
Mm-hmm. Almost.
Okay. Extra L.
Oh, yeah, there's an extra L. All right. Carl double L Halen. Wrote us on...
Before you go further on this was sent, just a bit of background, this was sent to me directly through my website rather than coming directly to the podcast as such. But yeah, so there you go. Just put that little bit at the start.
So he wrote us on October the 8th, and he says, "Dear Mr. Forster," ooh, that's very official sounding. "I am writing to you regarding the latest." This is already sounding like he's getting off to a very formal start. This should be interesting. "Dear Mr. Forster, I am writing to you regarding the latest Classic Lenses podcast, but really about the development of the podcast over the last few months. I first came across your podcasts last year whilst being on a long road trip across Europe. The first episode I listened to was the episode from Isabella Curtis. It was interesting, witty show, really made me curious about your podcasts, enthused me to listen to previous episodes, and also prompted me to start to follow your show. I listened to the majority of the shows in your back catalog and have diligently been following each new episode ever since. I have enjoyed a large portion of your shows, and I've really enjoyed going back to listen to some of the best episodes in the back catalog. Lately, however, I think your show is deteriorated, and I am really discouraged by some of your latest shows. In particular, the latest show was this actually written by, is this a pseudonym, KARL Halen? Do we actually know you by another name? Maybe something of the directional variety?
No, I don't know. No, this is not by Jeremy North.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, Jeremy wouldn't wait for an email. It just straight into Facebook and giving us with both feet.
Okay. So to return to deterioration, in particular, the latest show and the language therein I find crude, misogynistic, and inappropriate for being on your show.
Let's just have a short pause there. That's the episode with Mike Gutterman, just so everyone you can...
so we can blame it on Mike Gutterman.
It's all Mike's fault.
Perfect.
He said some bad things. He said some things that regarding the previous shows, but really this is all Mike's fault.
But what he's complaining about is sex and a Fiero.
And yes. I assume so, yeah.
Okay, great. Good context. Okay, so I'll continue, and then I'll ask you guys. Oh, he must have been listening to the Gutterman show, and we can blame it all on Mike Gutterman. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll just pick up again. In particular, the latest show and the language therein, I find crude, misogynistic, and inappropriate for being on your show. Unfortunately, this does not seem to be an isolated incident, but rather a development where the show has become more crude and accepting of language and tone that is not particularly nice. Do you think this must have been the Gutterman episode, maybe?
I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Was the Gutterman show?
Yeah.
The Sex and a Fiero show?
That's the one.
Okay. I stopped listening to the show about 2/3 in. I wish I had stopped earlier. In fact, I wish I had never listened to that particular episode at all. But I did not know what to expect and cannot have it undone. Nope, you can't undo it. It's in your ears. I vow. I think he means vow. I vow to never listen to your show again. Nor will I ever go back to listen to old episodes, as entertaining as they may have been at the time. This current approach says enough to me about your views of your listeners, why I feel more comfortable avoiding your show. So we're reading this, but he's never going to hear it. Or do you think he's waiting to hear it? Anyway, for quite some time, I was intending to write to you about my photography cameras and lenses, but unfortunately, I eventually thought that this was more important. I'm writing to you using your Simon Forster photographic email, since I do not know whether you would have considered reading this email in the show had I written directly to the podcast address. If you still elect to do so, I have, of course, no issue with that in particular, since I will not listen to any future episodes. I do not particularly expect any response to this email. On the other hand, with your role as one of the original organizers of the podcast and your reputation for being a very considerate person, I thought that maybe you would rather hear this than not. Yours very truly, Johan Halen from Bruxelles.
I think that would be Brussels.
Yeah, I know that's Brussels. Yeah. But I mean, since he's not going to listen to the show, we can call him Johan Van Halen from Bruxelles. And we can say, thanks for your email.
Oh, and thank you, Gutterman.
Yeah, thank you, Mike Gutterman, for permanently destroying the reputation of our show, which was obviously not us. We didn't do it.
I think, but I mean, we may well have been building up to Mike, so that could possibly explain we knew it was we had trailered that he was going to be coming onto the show. So,
we knew for weeks he was going to be coming on the show.
So we may have actually just built ourselves up for it, so that by the time we got to Mike, it wouldn't be as shocking to us, at least, anyway.
Right, and quite obviously, his influence since being on the show has infected the Classic Lenses podcast with what were the words? Inappropriate, vile, misogynistic crudity.
So on the one hand, I think it's kind of funny that this idea that what does he say? Listening to Gutterman, he wish he never listened to it at all and cannot have it undone. That was like Simon's reaction to Goatsy, right?
Yeah,
and it's see it. Nothing's changed on that.
So Mike Gutterman is the Goatsy of podcasting.
And Mike Gutterman cannot be undone. There's no unmaking the ring.
Exactly. And I don't know. It's kind of fitting that he's writing this from Brussels and sending it so formally to Simon, because if you kind of replace everything in this email, everything Classic Lenses podcast, and just replace it with Brexit.
Yeah, exactly.
bang on the same tone as well.
It's like a polite email from the EU telling the Brits, no, you're still f***ed, you guys. This doesn't work. We're not listening to this. We're just not having it.
Well, I feel I need to say a few things now in terms of balance.
Can I say, sorry, one thing? His English is very good, which is why I'm still not convinced this isn't Jeremy North. Because it sounds, his name sounds, I guess, Belgique or whatever, right? But this is written in very formal, proper English. So I don't know. It's just the whole thing is a little bit suspicious to me.
No, I think he's clearly an educated man. It's as simple as that. Okay. So my thoughts. The first thing is I was going to write back, and then I realised it was going to be an essay, and we're all busy people. I'm certainly busy at the moment, and we've been struggling even to get to make the show at times. So I thought, okay, well, he's given permission to talk about this on the podcast, and the other part to this is really we are, Perry, Johnny, and I are like the Borg. We are one. There are different parts of us, we're a tri-split personality, and we say some things that sometimes outrage each other, but ultimately we're friends, and we accept each other for what we are and what we say. And if we don't like something about what we say, we say it, and we usually say it on air as well. Yeah. So that's one thing. We cannot be divided. I guess is what I'm saying there. The other thing is, sorry, unlike the UK, yeah, which seems to be getting more divided by the minute.
Sorry.
Yeah. So other things. I want to thank you if you have got this far and listened. I do want to thank you for writing that in, because I think it's always good to reflect on the views of our listeners. We don't always agree with the views of our listeners, but I think we should always respect the views of our listeners, and I completely understand where the gentleman's coming from here.
Yes.
And I think is also correct. I think there has been a move in a certain direction since, this is actually, it's not actually Mike Gutterman's fault. It's all Perry's fault. And I think again we can all agree on that. And actually, I think last week we weren't too bad. So whether or not this is a direction of travel, certainly there has been a little bit more of that kind of stuff in recent shows. This is all part of the ebb and flow of a podcast, and we've done this is the 135th episode, and it's quite different from where we started. Some people I know would think or wish they made podcasts like we used to make podcasts and talk about a single subject and deep dives and things like that. And it's a case of, we haven't walked away from deep dives. It's a case of we actually don't have a great deal of time to actually plan these podcasts. We usually turn up and we talk. And that's just how these things are at the moment, because we've all got busy lives. The other side of it is a case of, I'm sorry if we have upset you, and we're sorry if we have upset some of our listeners that are listening at the moment. But it's a case of, ultimately we do this show because we enjoy talking to each other, and we know that some people like to hear some of the things that we say, and sometimes we actually come out with some things that are actually useful to people, but ultimately we just do this for ourselves. We don't do it for money, we don't do it for fame. It's a case of we just enjoy doing it, and we know that we're going to lose people, and we know we're going to gain people. I mean, there's been a quite considerable shift towards film. We still don't call ourselves a film podcast, but sometimes you could probably hardly tell that we're not a film podcast. And we know that we've lost people as a result of that, in the same way we know we've gained listeners for talking more about film. And I also had a bit of feedback from somebody contacting me privately regarding Johnny's outburst of basically having to go at half of America. Certainly the more rural,
the dumb half of America.
Yeah, that part of America, suggesting that we run a risk of alienated a huge number of people.
Oh God, I hope so. Yeah. I really, really hope so.
But it's a case of, again, we don't. Well, I don't particularly. I don't want to. Well, I know Johnny is quite happy to go out of his way to alienate and upset people. I don't, and I don't think Perry does either. But I understand why Johnny says the things that he does. He says, and I'm largely in agreement, or nodding my head, or thinking, well, that's a little bit too far, but I get the sentiment. So that's us. Take us or leave it, really.
I'm just, what I'm looking at right now is the. Have you guys ever seen this diagram of the id, ego, super ego iceberg?
No.
It's a psychology thing. So basically, the human personality, according to Freud, right, is the id, the ego, and the super ego, and so like each part of that plays a role in who we are. So the id is like the instinctual. The ego is, reality, and the superego is morality. And each of our icebergs has a different tip up out of the water. And the id is supposed to be way down at the bottom. And it doesn't really come out because you think before you do those sort of things. And that's mine is upside down. So my iceberg is completely upside down, and I just operate from the instinct part and kind of don't care about the rest, and that's why I have so much trouble in life. But that's my problem. That's just the way I am. So, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. What are you going to do? So we're each a different iceberg. It's the three icebergs, or or it's the three monkeys. No,
Perry, any thoughts?
That's a shockingly fitting analogy. Although clearly, Simon, I think you're the superego then.
Oh, Simon's definitely the superego. Although, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, definitely the superego.
Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. Superego, ideals and morals, striving for perfection, incorporated from parents, becoming a person's conscience, operating mostly at preconscious level. Ego, executing, executive mediating between id impulses and superego inhibitions, testing reality, rational, operates mainly at conscious level, but also at preconscious level. I don't know. Simon could be both of those.
Yeah, he could be.
I don't know. It sounded more like Perry, that does to me.
Yeah, I would agree that. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Perry's on the right track. Oh, here I'm going to drop them in the chat so you guys know what. Well, Perry's found it already, but I like this one because didn't someone address it to the good, the bad, and the ugly? It's the same thing.
Mm.
I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly is exactly that. It is three characters. It is the morality, reality, and instinct. That is exactly what that movie is, right? So it kind of makes perfect sense. I guess in that case, if we were the good, the bad, and the ugly, Simon would be Clint Eastwood, right?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, Simon would be Clint Eastwood, and Perry. I think Perry, you would be Tuco, because clearly I would be Angel Eyes. I would be the killer, right? And Perry would be the good killer. Blondie.
Which is the part that wants to bone his mom, though?
I don't think anybody bones their. Well, that would be Tuco. No, that would be Tuco.
Sorry, Simon.
No, that would definitely be Tuco for sure, 100%. Because remember, there's the scene where they're gonna hang him, and he's like leering at young women in the crowd that are there to watch him be hanged.
That I just want to say, Simon, that sigh was.
Yeah. I thought we were raising it to a higher level, and I guess we weren't.
Johan, point taken. No argument whatsoever with that. I have no argument whatsoever with what he wrote. I don't know why he would think we wouldn't read that. But no, I didn't even mean to call you a bad name about the email. I was just being funny. I don't have any problem with anything he wrote there, actually.
No.
Sounds about right. I mean, so, the takeaway is it's all Mike Gutterman's fault.
Exactly. I think that's something we can Borg-like agree on that.
Glad we clear that up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
An instance of nominative determinism with that guy. Where his name, Gutterman, describes...
Gutterman, yeah.
What comes out of man.
Yeah.
Definitely. Man of the gutter.
Well,
you could say it that way. Yoda would say it that way. Man of the gutter you are.
Well, I think we've got time for one more email, which means that we haven't got to the end of our emails, which is slightly predictable. So let's do one more, and then we'll start to wrap things up, eh?
Yeah, okay. So do we want to then read a praiseful one in by contrast, or do we want to read the next one on the list, which is all about lenses to talk about?
It's up to you. Take the choice.
I think we might save the one for the lenses because then we would actually talk about something substantial and useful.
Okay.
Why don't we? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we'll go to Baz's email. So Baz F writes us about October 9th, subject KARL's photography and bokeh theory. Dear Johnny Perry and Simon, thanks for all you do, great podcasts. I guess Baz is misinformed.
or he just hasn't got to the Mike Gutterman episode yet.
Or he's not actually Jeremy North in disguise. Yeah. I'm sure I'm not the first to think of this, but I was wondering if there's any appetite to make a book of KARL's photography. Any proceeds could go to the Down Syndrome Association of Central Florida, or another worthy cause. It could be part a tribute to KARL's photography, but also a nod to his cataloging of different lenses. Obviously, his family would have to be on board, and perhaps they would want to make it. But I'm sure there are qualified people on Facebook group who could make a nice book if given access to the photos. I'd be glad to help or try to get this started, but I definitely have no particular expertise with photo book design. Just a thought. No need to mention this on the podcast if it's not appropriate, or there are other obstacles, concerns, etc. You all know this situation better than me. So this may be wacky, but on another note, it seems clear. Different people from different backgrounds, kinds of bokeh or none at all. Smooth, swirling, busy, harsh, wet on wet, and then all the bokeh ball shapes, round, soap bubble, cat eyes, geometric worms, no worms, etc. I wonder if this preference is at all correlated with the eye prescription of the viewer. For instance, do heavily nearsighted people prefer one kind of bokeh? Maybe it's not correlated at all, but I'm nearsighted, and when I'm not wearing contacts or glasses, the world is smooth bokeh, and I tend to like that in lenses. I wonder if people with perfect vision do not have that influence, or maybe like different bokeh. Do farsighted people go another way? Or is there a correlation with glasses wearers because peripheral vision always has some out-of-focus area? Any thoughts? Is this stupid? My other hypothesis is that bokeh preference is correlated to pizza preference, but that's more speculative. Thanks, regards, Baz. That is really interesting. I was thinking this is BS at first, but then as he explained more, I'm like, maybe there's something to that. I mean, I'm thinking like the Claude Monet thing where he, was painting everything a certain way because his eyes were all messed up at the end of his life. I don't know.
Well, the Monet story I'm not sure if it was Monet or Manet, but one of those two, I think it was Monet, had cataracts.
Yeah, it was.
And then they were removed, and he didn't like. Well, the story I heard that he didn't actually like what he had been painting, when you could actually see properly.
Yeah, I think that's the same the Monet versus Manet.
Yeah.
That I mean, famously I'm just talking from having gone through art history class and all the endlessly boring goddamn Monet exhibits at the Art Institute of Chicago, because that's all they ever want to show, because they have this unbelievable collection of Monets that were bought really cheap in whatever year, so they feel obligated to show them whenever they need to raise some money for the museum. But anyway, I'm thinking of the notes in the for the different paintings that he did at his, I guess his retirement home or his place that he lived, where that was one of the notes, is that the look of the paintings was influenced by his poor eyesight. So it does not seem so far-fetched to me that there could be I mean, I'm farsighted and I definitely prefer depth of field versus bokeh, because when I don't have my reading glasses on, I can't see anything and I'm just angry. So I'm angry I'm in the same way bokeh shots make me angry. So could be, I don't know,
man. This sounds like a very spurious correlation to me. But I mean, that said, I'm shocked that he describes the world as smooth bokeh when he's not wearing his glasses, because I'm nearsighted too, although I've got astigmatism as well, and my eye bokeh is atrocious. It's like point light sources look like it's hard to describe, but they're just like scattered everywhere. It's really terrible bokeh.
Yeah, if I had a lens like my eye bokeh without reading glasses on, I would definitely throw that lens out. I would.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. Maybe, but although, okay, my eyesight has deteriorated rapidly since I hit 49 and a half. So I can't see anything close up anymore. So maybe before my eyesight changed, I would have liked maybe. So in other words, if I had been born nearsighted and it didn't make me angry, maybe I would like bokeh like that. I don't know. It's an interesting question.
It doesn't make sense that there would be a correlation there, because with a painter, you can get why Monet or when you say Manet, I just think Sadio Mane. So not a painter. When it makes sense with a painter, because they are visualizing or seeing things and then transferring it onto paper or canvas or whatever. But photography is like reverse painting, right? You're not putting stuff onto a canvas. You're taking what's out there and then shooting it. So it sounds very, very spurious to me. I know that in terms of my own bokeh taste, they evolved based on like what I think is cool at the time. So back when all these fancy modern lenses started coming out with like perfectly smooth bokeh, you get this. If you go on DP Review, for example, in their minds there's like this objective platonic form of perfect bokeh, right? Which is just like perfectly smooth, no hard edges, round all the way through, which as time has gone on, I have found increasingly boring, and I'm sure pretty much all of our listeners find incredibly boring, because it looks like some iPhone filter, right? That just blurs everything out evenly. So I don't know if you can draw a correlation between things like that. People's tastes vary depending on lots of different stuff, right? You might be influenced by your friends or people who you follow or look up to. You may be a cinematographer and be looking for certain vibes, and then the lenses you like give you those kinds of vibes as well. I think this particular correlation is one that, I mean, it would be interesting to pursue with a study, I suppose, but I have my skeptic hat on.
I don't know.
And I don't have an opinion on that at all, other than the potential. There could be something to be said about the pizza preference. But going to the top of the email about producing a book with KARL's photography. That absolutely has gone through our minds. And interestingly enough, before KARL had died, we were talking about producing some kind of zine or photo book based upon guests' work and people that we talk to and admire and so on, which obviously never came to fruition, and that thought pretty much ended for me at that point. And for me anyway, I was thinking, well, I don't actually want to do that without KARL now,
right?
And nothing's really changed on that. I'm not entirely sure if that's how healthy that is, but that's just where I am with that. I think there's certainly something to be said about the suggestion there, but it's somebody's got to really want to do that, and for me that would just be a really difficult thing to do. I share your feeling. I think it would be, to me, it would be too difficult personally to do that. I don't know.
And I think sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say it's a great idea, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely sentiment, right? But there's the double toss-up between the emotional sort of punch to the gut.
Yeah.
Taking us on something like that would be. But then from a more objective point of view, there's also the kind of artistic strangeness about curating someone else's work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like doing a Vivian Meyer on someone. It's a little. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. The idea without like their full involvement and consent as well.
Okay, so yeah, good idea, and I think we've explained our feelings on that one. Okay, so I think it's extremely late. It's 1:30 now, I think, in Hong Kong. So I think we need to start to wind things down a little bit. And the first thing I want to do, and I cannot remember, did I say thank you to the people who donated to us last time, Perry? Did I do that?
Because we had a hard stop last time.
We did. So that makes sense, because there's quite a lot of names on here. So I'm going to go back in time a fair way, and hopefully I'm going to go back far enough, and I'm going to go to start off with Hong Lee on the 12th of October. And it's to the Pontiac Fiero of podcasts. Thank you. So Hong clearly enjoyed Mike Gutterman. So there you go. Then Robert Danny enjoys some coffees, gents. Those pizza choices would deserve Malort, not coffee. Then Nick Marshall, Mike Epstein, and Brian Carr donated to us, and then we got Mike Rose says thank you Simon for all that you and the others share. So thank you, Mike. And Nigel Cliff on the 31st of October says, despite the cost of therapy due to you having an extended break, I'm still going to be generous. And Surrey is the Indiana of England. I'm not entirely sure I agree with that, but
every country's got their own Indiana.
Yeah, interesting. Surrey, yeah, that's very leafy Surrey. I'm struggling with that one.
No, Essex is more like the New Jersey of England.
Well, soon I live here. I'm not going to diss any of the counties.
Why? Because they're going to come and get you?
Exactly.
They won't even be armed. I mean, maybe with pitchforks.
Armed? That's like down like the southwest or Norfolk. If you're armed. Anyway, let's quickly.
What about Hull?
Hull, or all as it's all.
A number of years ago, I was in England for the FA Cup final between Hull and Arsenal, and I was seated at Wembley in like an Arsenal area, and right above us, on the stand directly above us, were the Hull fans, and I think I've never feared for my life the way that I did having a bunch of Hull City fans above us in the terraces, because in Lord of the Rings, those scenes when like the orcs attack, that's what the Hull City fans were like. So, apologies to any listeners from Hull. I'm sure there's some lovely people from Hull. But let's just say, like, y'all did not leave a good impression that day. At all.
I must add that Arsenal fans have a similar point of view as Stoke City supporters.
But that's not the supporters. It's just because the team has just a history of running roughshod over them because they're weak.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But this is the fans.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. Okay, let's move on. And the last two were Lawrence Dunn and Brian Walworth. So thank you all very, very much. Should we do some shout outs? Perry, have you got any shout outs?
I do not have any shout outs, although I do want to mention, because you mentioned Robert Danny there in our list of donors. And a number of weeks ago, I mentioned how I bumped into him and his wife and kid while my girlfriend and I were out shooting. This was a while ago. It turns out that I actually did photograph them, and they are my subject in a street photograph, which is hilarious. But the picture is also super blurry because I remember thinking, not a great subject, but I must have accidentally pressed the shutter as I was lowering the camera. So just a quick shout out to Robert Danny over there.
Okay, Perry? Yeah, not Perry. Johnny, have you got any shout outs or anything you want to mention?
I just want to give a quick shout out to the Gemosaurus for sending me funny things during the past week, which were appreciated. It's been a very trying week in America. So thank you, Mr. Gemosaurus.
Did Jem? I've been chatting with Jem too. Did he tell you about his Leica R8 gas?
I don't think he did.
Yeah, so he has severe gas for Leica R8, and he's been lusting over them to me for the last couple of weeks or so, and I've just tried not to laugh directly in his face. But
I don't think anybody trusts me anymore to share their gas with me for some reason. Robbie won't share gas with me anymore. I don't think anybody. I don't know why. I'm not judging. I don't care. I mean, I'm like the least judgy person about what people want to use. They use whatever you want. It's all good.
You use the lens that Robbie is lusting over right now, right? You would totally judge him for it.
What you think?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
I'll tell you after the show. And
okay, all right, okay.
I feel like that. People are saying, no, we want to know what the lens is.
It is the MS Optics 24mm f2.
What's wrong with that?
Okay, no, I thought you would diss it.
No, it's 24mm. Come on, that's awesome.
f2 pancake lens cap lens.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'd be on with that. Is it cheap? How much do they want for it?
It was $1,200 ish.
Oh, Jesus Christ! No, I'd rather buy $1,200 worth of Bitcoin right now than any lens on the planet.
and like was it R8?
That's what Jem wants. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wants to put the pancake lens on it.
No. The MS Optics is what Robbie wants.
Oh, right. Okay. That makes a bit more sense.
I think it's like a fantastic lens, but not for that money. I'd say buy an R8 for any price if you want an R8. And get in the Gutterman Club.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that, right? But for the price, it's a 24mm f2. And it's very unique character, and it's like lens cap sized. There's nothing like that in M mount. Yeah. In M mount, that's not insane.
No,
for what it is.
I paid 98 cents for a Vivitar ultra wide and slim that does 24mm and probably has more character than that thing.
But not f2.
Yeah, but who cares about f2? It's a wide angle lens.
I don't know, man. Fast wide angle lenses are they're really.
Yeah, they are. No, I totally agree. At that price, no way. My only sidestep on that is the price. But then again, if somebody wants to spend the $1,200 on that, then by all means,
I mean, the thing is, though, I mean, it's like any low volume lens is expensive to make. It's as simple as that. That's just how these things are. So if you want something that that does these things, but there's no mainstream alternative to that, is there?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
but
that is the price. That is the value. It's as simple as that. If that's what you want, that's what you got to pay.
Right.
Yeah, I guess at least it's like MS Optics, and it's not like some Chinese company selling it for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like the weird Lens Light Lab 8-element.
Right. It's actually like legitly made by a craftsman, basically. Which, I'm down with that. I'm down
And
with
at that speed and focal length, if you're getting that fast, you're in like Summicron and Summilux territory. There's nothing else on that mount, and so compared to what else is on the market, it's I think it's totally. I wouldn't buy it, but I think it's totally reasonable.
I wouldn't either, but I would understand wanting to get it for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've got one shout out that I can remember at least anyway, and that's to Daniel Cook, who got in touch with me a month ago now, actually, a month and a day ago, and that name might be familiar to people, as we've mentioned him before, because he's the chap behind a website called usedlens.co.uk, which probably people have thought, oh, that's a good idea, and then forgotten about. Well, it's worth reminding people about it. And it's a site that, it's not particularly good for if you're in America, but if you're in Europe, actually, no, it will do America as well, I think, actually. But it's .co.uk, so that's usedlens.co.uk, and you can use it. It's a search engine. It's like a meta search engine for lenses. And it's not only has it got like eBay on there, but it's also got dealers. If he's able to get access to what dealers have got on their websites, then there's a good chance it's actually on there as well. But he's updated the site a little bit because we did actually suggest it, and he's taken this on board. That it's because eBay is on there and it's quite dominant on there, but you can filter eBay out if you wanted to. But what he's done now is he's given the ability for people to actually search specific European eBay sites rather than just .co.uk. So that can be quite handy because sometimes there are things that are not visible in one country that's available, and sometimes they won't mind actually shipping abroad, so from their country. So that could be a useful, it is a useful source. So that's Daniel Cook there with uselens.co.uk. Okay, I think we're done. Are we done?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Except I want to say I've now found the page for the MS Optics Aporia 24mm f2M mount.
Yes.
Is that the lens in question? Which comes in black, yellow, or silver. And it has a Voigtlander style focusing tab on it. So I am now 100% on board with that lens.
It's so sweet. It's it's so small, right? It's really interesting.
I'm 100% on board with that lens now. If it was not my money. And I think if Robbie's going to buy it, he should also there's a picture of it mounted on a Zeiss Icon.
Yeah.
So I think he should get a Zeiss Icon to mount the lens onto, but get a silver Zeiss Icon and get the black lens.
Oh, that's acceptable. It's not the other way around.
Yeah, go Panda. Go Pandas.
Okay. So, Perry, outside of this show, how can people keep up with the things that you do?
You can find me on Instagram and Flickr at Perry G, although I haven't posted for almost a month now because I'm out of Fixer, so I'll start posting again once I get some fresh Fixer.
Cool. Johnny, how about yourself?
You could find me on Instagram at Second City Auto, but I haven't posted anything on there either. Someday I will, though.
Yeah.
Post something there
and
again.
You're currently taking an enforced rest from Facebook at the moment, aren't you?
Oh yes. I use the word idiot on Facebook, which apparently credibly threatening to behead someone gets you a free pass, but using the word idiot in relation to your own ancestors who have been dead for over 200 years, that gets you banned for 30 days.
Yeah.
So be careful with the word idiot, people.
Yeah.
Be careful with the word idiot.
But inciting a beheading isn't too bad. So
no, inciting a beheading, if you're someone who has already subverted democracy in several nations, is just fine.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad we cleared
all
that
good.
one up.
All good.
And so if you wanted to write into the show, what's the way to do that? Well, there's more than one way, as we've demonstrated today.
If you have a disgruntled email, you can send that to Simon directly, or you could send it to classiclensespodcast@gmail.com. And either way, it will be read because we will read anything that gets sent to us. We have no problem with that. So definitely go ahead and send it, good, bad, or ugly. All of them, will take it all. You can obviously follow the podcast at classiclensespodcast.com, which is now up and running yet again. We had a small, a short time this week where it was offline, but it is now back online. You can, let's see, you can find us on YouTube, maybe, Classic Lenses Podcast. You can, on Instagram, you can follow along Best Vintage Lens. What else do we have?
Well, we've got Make Bokake Great Again in racist red caps available.
Yeah, yes, we do. We have Make Bokake Great Again racist red caps.
Yeah. In
the shop.
We have a famous purchaser of those as well, don't we? With because Ethan Moses bought one of those. I think for he was going to do some YouTube with that hat on. And,
was he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it turns out he's been walking around his house with the hat on, and his neighbours have been seeing him. And they're not really seeing what it says. They just see a red hat, and they make assumptions of his allegiances at the moment. So he's talking about burning it, I think, soon.
Danger. It's the most dangerous hat in America. Make Bokake Great Again. You better get one while you can, because we might discontinue them. Yeah. Anyway, get one of those. And that's in the shop. You can get all kinds of Classic Lenses Podcast swag if you go to the website. There's a link there to all the stuff. Yes.
Speaking of swag, two things. Number one, I have it on direct authority that the women's version of the Classic Lenses Podcast T-shirt is extremely comfortable. Because I got one for my girlfriend, and it is significantly nicer feeling than the men's version.
Really? Because I have the men's version. It's like my favorite T-shirt.
Yeah, no, the men's version is really comfy as well. I have it too, and it's great. But the ladies' one is something else. Can
we say that's proof of that we're not actually misogynistic on this show?
Ooh, good point.
Yeah, that's proof.
No, that's only Gutterman. We don't talk about we don't talk about all the chicks we've banged in cars. We leave that to Mike Gutterman.
Yeah, that's true. We're not misogynist, right? We're just gross sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Sorry, consider the word to be misogynistic. Oof. I know that's going to get bleeped, but I don't find it misogynistic at all. If you can say dick, you can say. But it's just great because is way more offensive. It's like the only offensive word left in the English, well, at least the American English language, and I think to some degree in the British English language as well. But in the Australian English language, right? Yeah, it's not even offensive to anyone.
It's a
term, like a comma.
Yeah, it's a term of endearment down there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, but whatever. The Puritans and the formerly Puritans are still somewhat offended by it.
Yes, and quickly, the second thing, other than our swag, Tamarkin Auction.
Yeah, oh yes. I'm so glad you brought that up, Perry. See, Perry is definitely the ego. No, wait, the super ego. Perry's the angel. Okay, we'll post the chart. Perry's the angel. So, the Tamarkin Auction is happening like fucking tomorrow, dudes. I'll put a link to it in the thing, but. Come on. I don't know if you guys have looked at the catalog, but like the suggested starting prices on a lot of the stuff in there is not crazy. Like there's a robot Royal in there with 3 lenses, and they've got the starting opening bid at like, oh, we're suggesting $300. Really? I mean, if nobody bids on that, you could pick up a robot Royal with like 3 lenses for $300 or $400. And a lot of the stuff in previous auctions I've noted, it doesn't all sell. I mean, a lot of the Leica stuff sells, but not everything sells. So if you're thinking maybe, hey, I might want to grab that. I mean, look at the terms, obviously, because there's a little bit more to it cost-wise. But you should really consider grabbing something from Dan Tamarkin. There's some amazing stuff in there.
Yeah, some really cool stuff in the catalog.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So go to the friend of the show, Dan Sale. Go back a few episodes and you can hear Dan. And that's it, I think. Have we forgotten anything? Yes, probably. But anyway, let's wind things down properly. This is where I should say where you can find me. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic. I'm on Flickr, sort of. I'm on Twitter as Simon4, and I have a website called It's simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where I have an increasing range of front lens caps now. Front lens caps are the rage. So I'm making lens caps for TLRs. I've got a couple heading to Sweden at the moment. For an IcoFlex, Zeiss Icon IcoFlex, as in the gentleman gave me very accurate dimensions, the dimensions I required, and I was able to make him some caps, and he's very happy. Well, he's going to be very happy. He seems to be very happy, and lots of people seem to be happy with the lens caps I'm making them. So there you go. So just get in touch with me via my website is probably the best way of doing that. So that's it. Our music is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com, and I hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and who knows, we might be back next week instead of a fortnight. We'll do our best. So that's it. So if you can, be like KARL.